And right now we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Katie Greifeld taking you through to that closing bell. It's a global simulcast. We're joined now by Carol Massar, normal in today for Tim Stenovec. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television, radio, our partnership with YouTube. And I think I said this the last few days, Carol, another wild day on Wall Street.
Yeah, well, the VIX has gone up, so it definitely is volatile. I'm just looking at what happened with WTI crude today. We've been up as much as 31% in today's session, down as much as almost 11%, still down about 5%, but quite a move from top to bottom there. And that really kind of spells out the day. It just shows how one little headline or a couple of headlines out of the president can change the tone.
Absolutely. And really financials being the worst performing group, but it's really been interesting to see this shift, this reversal. We saw so much red all over our screens, but now we're seeing about 9 out of 11 of the industry groups in the S&P 500 in the green here.
I have to say, it is pretty amazing, to Carol's point, that just a couple of headlines from the president and the market action completely changes. Optimistic timelines here. President Trump saying that the war is very complete to CBS News. Romaine and I have been making the point that you take a look at the direction we were headed. It seemed like this market wanted to go green anyway, but still, it's really interesting to see this degree of a turnaround.
And just we should point out, for WTI crude, a $38 swing, almost $40 swing here just in one day. I was trying to go back to see the last time we saw a swing like that. It looks like basically you have to go back to right around the start of the pandemic in 2020. I'm going to find out what that is on a percentage basis and give us a little bit more context there. Meanwhile, you're looking at green across the screen, and if you had joined us here on the close about an hour ago, it was a completely different story. A huge turnaround based on those headlines from the president speaking with CBS News. The Dow Jones Industrial Average looks like it's going to finish the day higher by about 0.5%, adding more than 200 points. The S&P 500, which was lower by about 1.5% at one point, finishing the day higher by 0.8%. The Nasdaq Composite up about 1.4%, and the Russell 2000 closing out the day higher by 1.1%.
All right, going to go back to the big caps, the S&P 500 specifically. Even though we're way off our lows of the session, Katie, it's still kind of an even split. 254 names gaining ground in the S&P 500 on this Monday, 249 to the downside.
Yeah, it's interesting because you take a look at the sector performance. There were very clearly more winners than losers, but what we're seeing in tech helps explain it here. Tech was your biggest gainer when it comes to a percent basis and a points basis. The sector higher by about 1.8%, but communication services, healthcare, industrials also participating in a big way. The two sectors that didn't exactly perform on this Monday, financials, as Nora mentioned, down about 0.5%. Energy, interestingly, also off about 0.4%.
Yeah, just slightly, probably following what we saw in energy markets. Hey, let me go to some of the individual gainers. I'm sure you guys talked about it. Hims and Hers Health and Novo Nordisk. Hims and Hers Health, biggest move that we've seen, most ever, in fact, intraday, and I'm assuming here at the close, up about 40, almost 41%. This happening after Novo Nordisk was said to have ended its public feud with the company, ending litigation with an agreement to actually sell its weight loss drugs on the Hims platform. So we did see Hims, a big move to the upside. Novo Nordisk, which has been struggling as it tries to find its way in what has become an increasingly competitive GLP-1 landscape, it too up about 3.1%. So we've got that playing out. Also, kind of staying in the drugs and biotech space, a lot of movement in the area for some companies, and some of it has to do with the head of the FDA's Division of Vaccines and Gene Therapies set to leave the agency next month. We talked with Bloomberg's Madison Muller. This is a pretty big deal for some companies in the biotech space or the space overall. So Capricor Therapeutics, it's a $1.6 billion market cap, clinical stage biotech. It's working on biological therapies. That one was up almost 10% in today's session. It's been higher all day. And then another one, RegenX Bio, also a clinical stage biotech company, small market cap, about 542 million market cap there, developing gene therapy products. But that one, too, the expectation may be a better and some more supportive landscape from the FDA for these kinds of companies and the work that they're doing. That one was up about 20%. And then just quickly, let's go on over to Live Nation. Some news for that one. The company and its Ticketmaster subsidiary have reached a settlement with federal antitrust authorities, according to the Justice Department. The agreement announced, but it would reportedly open up parts of Live Nation's ticketing arm to third-party sellers, make it easier for other promoters to put on shows at amphitheaters that Live Nation controls. And you can see that one whenever you get rid of some litigation overhang, you can see it pop to the upside, up about 6.2%. That's
it's going to add a couple honorable mentions too. Just that big move that we saw, of course, in Lumentum earlier today, along with Vertiv and Coherent, of course, going to be added to the S&P 500 at the end of March 23rd.
Well, let's look at some of the names in the red. I mean, this was a day that we ended up seeing a bit of a reversal in the market, but digging into some of the decliners.
You had to scramble to make some changes.
Because we did see a lot of changes. I'm tweaking my names up until the closing bell. But taking a look at Boeing, this is a stock that ended lower by about 2.6% on the day. We got some headlines crossing the Bloomberg terminal earlier today saying that the Iran war has airlines reviewing growth plans as fuel costs rise. We heard that some airlines were considering halting jet deliveries, which we know when we think about contracts with Boeing, a lot of these things are done far out. So really just casting some uncertainty here in the market. Some airlines were said to also pause leasing and order discussions. So you certainly saw that weighing on sentiment here for investors of Boeing, but keeping an eye on all the implications that we've been seeing in terms of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Of course, we got the headlines coming out earlier about what the outlook could be and how long this actual conflict could last. But there were some stocks that, of course, have exposure to the oil space. I'm taking a look at shares of Uber. They ended lower by about 1.7%. DoorDash in focus, that went down about 1.4% at the closing bell. Now, this, of course, is due to the idea that these companies actually have exposure to the cost for fuel, oil, and the idea that these all this pressure could really trickle out into the consumer and make things more expensive. We know Ubers, at least here in New York City, are already expensive with a lot of these surcharges. But thinking about that, just actually coming into DoorDash and Uber and whether or not that could actually weigh on consumers and the companies more broadly. And lastly, wrapping things up, I've got my eyes on Paramount Skydance. We know that this is a story that's really been evolving day after day. If we think about Paramount Skydance and Warner Brothers Discovery, that battle that we saw between Paramount Skydance and Netflix that we know Paramount did win here. So we do see shares down about 6.7% on the day. This is after Tencent said it intends to invest several $100 million.